Liberia has some of the richest forest lands in Western Africa, but also has a troubled economic and political history. When Ellen Sirleaf Johnson took office as Africa's first female president 13 years ago, one of her goals was to capitalize on the country's precious forests that had been safeguarded for centuries by the indigenous people in the remote Sino County region of Liberia.
For indigenous people, a forest is more than just the physical land or the physical trees. It's their way of life. It is their supermarket, it's their hospital. It is everything to them.
Alfred Brownell, an attorney and law professor, together with his Green Advocates organization, agreed to mitigate the conflict between the native people and Golden Beryllium, an international palm oil conglomerate. The company had forcefully established palm oil plantations by clearing indigenous people's lands without notice, consent, or compensation. In the process, the company had polluted local water sources, cleared community forests, and destroyed the tribe's sacred sites.
If you stood in the village, you just see the massive oil palm. I was shocked. Centuries of history and culture. The company replaced that with an oil palm operation. They were harassing them, they were intimidating them, they were arresting them. So the first thing I had to do was to give them hope, to stand up and fight for that forest.
Alfred and his team filed a complaint with the Roundtable for Sustainable Palm Oil and documented the numerous ways in which Golden Beryllium was violating the standards that had been established for sustainable certification. But Alfred was soon faced with a confrontation for which his law studies could never have prepared him. A blockade in the middle of a palm oil plantation was the setting for a hostile band of Golden Beryllium employees with machetes, threatening Alfred with brutally ending his life. Then the village chief intervened with the attackers.
He said, "This blood that you want to waste, you can put this blood on this land. So you have to take him to another town and kill him." I told the driver, "Let's go." And we fled the area.
Alfred's bravery and determination resulted in the Roundtable for Sustainable Palm Oil issuing a stop work order on Golden Beryllium because of the numerous violations that Green Advocates had listed in their complaint filing. Chief among those violations was that Golden Beryllium had not received the consent of the indigenous people to turn their forests into palm oil plantations.
When I got the news that their rights were being restored now to protect this forest and protect the people who live in this forest for generations to come, I was overwhelmed and I cried.
After the decision in favor of the native people, Alfred's safety and security were jeopardized, even in his home in Monrovia. A warrant for his arrest was issued that quickly turned into a manhunt that he barely escaped with his wife and children.
It was the toughest decision that Alfred ever made. And I can tell you, even when Alfred succeeded, even in leaving the country, Alfred's goal was to instantly come back. So, Alfred left with a very heavy heart.
Alfred and his family are living in exile in the United States. He's a visiting environmental and human rights law professor at Northeastern University in Boston. He publicly speaks out at schools, churches, and community groups to focus attention on protecting Liberian forests from being exploited further by encroaching industries.
I had to pull my family off. I had to tear my children away. Whenever I talk to the indigenous people who I work with, I really miss them. I have made up my mind that even with the gun at my face, I will do this 1,000,000 times. I am not afraid. I am prepared and I have no regret.
For outstanding environmental achievement for Africa, the 2019 Goldman Environmental Prize is awarded to Alfred Brownell, Sino County, Liberia.